Okay, I have a question for you guys. What is positive psychology? So tell me what you're working on, what you're studying in class. You don't get F's, I guess. What is positive psychology?
Focusing on your personal strengths.
What else? Come on, guys. Class participation.
The way you think, pretty much like the way you use keeping stuff, thinking that in a positive way, and just your perspective on different things in life.
Okay, so in order to kind of understand Run the Streets, and I'll kind of explain Run the Streets in a little while, I want you to understand where I was coming from in terms of the system I work within in developing Run the Streets. So I'm a juvenile probation officer, which is pretty much what it sounds like. We deal with kids who are in trouble with the law. We work with them through the delinquent process, and there's I work in a bureaucracy. There's just a set process that we follow. We're involved with the courts, the legal system, that kind of thing. So from your guys' idea, because a lot of people have misperceptions about the juvenile system. Okay, I'll give you a little scenario. You guys tell me what you think would happen, like involved in the process of the juvenile system to a kid or a kid. So let's say you're 15 years old. You break into your neighbor's shed, like the shed behind their house, and you steal some tools out of there, and you get stopped by the police and arrested. What do you think the next step after your arrest is? Okay. So there's several steps between arrest and court. So yeah, that's the first thing that happens is you get processed down to the police station. And then what do you think the police do after they process the kids?
They send them home or have their call their parents or something like that.
Right. That's exactly right. And depending on the severity of the crime, they phone us, our on-call worker, and they run the offense by us, and we make a decision on whether they get released to their parents or whether we're going to contact the court about putting the kids in detention. And so you've probably heard people use the word like juvie. Have you all ever heard that, like juvie? There's really no such thing as juvie in the state of Oklahoma. In Oklahoma, we have detention centers, which are like temporary teenage jails to house kids. So you got two paths to go by right off the bat. Either you get cut loose to your parents, or you go to detention. If you go to detention, you appear before a judge within 48 hours, and that judge decides, sets your bond, decides whether you stay in detention or not. The thing about detention is I think there's probably a dozen detention centers across the state of Oklahoma, and we just start calling for beds, and the closest bed may be in El Reno, it may be all the way out in the Panhandle. That's where that kid goes in the middle of the night, is out to whatever detention center we can find. So they go out there, and then the next step is there's a decision about how their case is going to be handled, whether that case is going to go through a deferred process, in other words, they don't go to court, whether the case is going to go to court, or whether the case is just dismissed because there's not enough evidence. So it starts fanning out. But really what I want to talk about mostly is the probation process. So if you're a kid and you end up getting put on probation, or if you get a deferred case where we're supervising you, what kind of things do you think a kid on probation might have to do? Right, that's one of the things we do. What else?
Get education.
I'm sorry?
Get education of some kind of quality.
Okay,
Check in on a regular basis.
right. And where does that happen usually?
I'm not sure.
Like at our office, right? They gotta come to our office. Depending on the severity, their offenses from anywhere from 1 to 4 times a month. They come to our office and sit down and meet with someone like me. What else might they have to do? Pay restitution, like if there's some damages or if they've stolen some property and their property's not returned, they're gonna have to pay for that property. Pay court costs. What happens if they don't do what they're supposed to do? Like, The court orders them to do community service, pay restitution, meet with me, go to school. What happens if they don't know what they're supposed to do? Which this is the negative psychology part of,
Yeah.
of the system. So
Do
that's why
they give
we're
them so many tries? I don't know how many, but
right.
I'm pretty sure they give them.
And neither do we. We don't know how many tries we give them. We give them enough tries till we get mad about it, and then we do something about it. There's really, there's no formula to it. But what do you think we do about it?
Probably extend their sentence in the detention center.
Okay, so for most of our kids, if they go to detention, they only stay in a few days, like 2 days, 4, a week, something like that. So they're out, they're in the community, they're not going to school, they're not showing up to meet with me, they're not doing their community service. Maybe they got a hot drug test. What do we do about it?
Send them back to the detention
You would think
or the other thing.
to like a placement or something, like a group home. Okay. So here's the deal on that. You cannot send a kid back to detention just for being a jerk. You can only put a kid in detention for a new offense. So if they haven't gone out and created a new offense and been arrested again, they don't go back to detention. They just stay in the community, and here's the worst thing we can do to them in the community. We have a 5-day sanctions program, which is in a detention center, and you go to sanctions for 5 days, and you have to wake up at like 6 in the morning, and you go to bed at like 8, you can't talk to the other kids while you're there, and they do Richard Simmons sweating to the oldies videos, and they sit in school all day. It's not like a boot camp kind of thing, it's just like a timeout. That's the worst thing we can do to them in the community. Now, if you get arrested for a more serious crime, we may send you to a group home right off the bat. So something like, does anyone know the difference between a burglary 1 and a burglary 2? See, these kids don't know that either.
Is it weapons involved or?
No.
Is it the amount that was burglarized?
No, but both those are good guesses. And this is how kids get into trouble, because in the state of Oklahoma, if you're 16 years old and you commit a burglary 2, you go through the juvenile process. You have to do that, do the stuff we're talking about. If you commit a burglary 1, which is not much different than a burglary 2, you're eligible to go to prison. And most kids don't know the difference between a burglary 1 and a burglary 2. So the big deal between a burglary 2 and a burglary 1 is, in a burglary 1, someone's in the dwelling or the building that you're burglarizing. Okay? So in your mind, you can imagine that's a lot worse thing than going into an unoccupied building, because you never know what's going to happen if someone's in that building. So in the state of Oklahoma, that's the way that's sorted out. And so if you're a kid and you committed a burglary 1, you may go to the county jail to await trial and await what happens to you. It's called the youthful offender law. But again, our kids, even kids who've been in the system, don't realize the difference in severity between those two types of cases. So if you go to a group home, we say we send you to a group home, you go there for about 6 or 7 months, depending on how long it takes for you to complete the program. If you've committed a really bad crime, like say a rape or a burglary 1, or shooting someone, stabbing someone, killing someone, you go to a juvenile prison called an institution. We have 2 of those in the state of Oklahoma. A juvenile institution, there's no time limit on how long you're there. You're there until you finish your program. And I've had kids in juvenile prisons for over 5 years. They go in at 13 and they come out at 18. Now, you can imagine the positive psychology going on in a place like that.
Yeah.
Okay? And what those kids are like when they come out. If you went in to any kind of system when you're 13 and came out when you're 18, you're going to be a completely changed person. And if that system involves being locked up with other kids who've done really bad things, what are you going to learn while you're in there?
That'd be more bad things.
Exactly right. And so you guys probably have a different perspective on treatment and how to approach those things, but the general public, here's what they want us to do. They want us to lock those little snots up and punish them and keep punishing them until they change their behavior. But just like you said, if I take a kid from Bartlesville, Oklahoma, who commits a burglary 1, and he goes to an institution and he's locked up there for 3 years with some kid who's a legitimate gangbanger from Tulsa, like real deal gangbanger, that kid from Bartlesville is going to come out in much worse shape than he would have if he'd gone through some kind of alternative program. But that's what the public wants us to do, is punish those kids. The other thing the public doesn't want to do is pay for those placements. Because when you send a kid to even a detention center, which is, just kind of jail, you're not providing treatment, you're not providing anything, you're talking about $110, $120 a day to keep that kid there. If you send them all the way up to an institution, it's about $150 a day. Now think about that cost over a period of 3 years or 5 years. That $150 a day, that doesn't count any of your court expenses, any transportation, any of that. That's just housing them there at that institution. So the public wants them locked up, but they don't want to spend their tax dollars on locking them up. And that's why I've worked for OJ for, I think, 13 years, going on 14 years. We've lost 700 beds, 700 places to put kids in the time that I've worked for OJA. So police arrest kids, we don't have any place to put them, so we turn them right back loose to their parents the majority of the time. That's what happens. They get released to their parents. They don't do what they're supposed to, we send them to sanctions for 5 days. Then we get tired of messing with them for after about a year and a half, and we finally get them to do their community service and halfway go to school, and we close their case. And what do those kids learn about the system? It's how to wear it down, that we're all a bunch of jerks, that we're out to get them, that we're against them, that kind of thing. So the other part of what the public doesn't know, if we send a kid to a group home, the chances that they're going to reoffend when they get back out are somewhere between 20 and 50%. And so if you spend $25,000 rehabilitating a kid at a group home for 6 months, and there's a 50-50 chance they're going to reoffend within a year once they get out, that's not really money well spent. Okay. So, with all that in mind, after 6 or 7 years of working in the juvenile system, my mind started working on alternatives and trying to do things a better way. Because our agency spends almost $0 on prevention, trying to keep kids out of the system. So in 2006, I read an article in Runner's World magazine called Marathon High, and it was about the Students Run LA program. And Students Run LA is a full marathon program in which inner city kids in Los Angeles, it's a school-based program. They run with their teachers after school. They train for the LA Marathon, and they spend the whole school year training for the LA Marathon, and then run the LA Marathon. So I'm a runner. I'm out running one day, and after reading that article, shortly after reading it, and my mind starts going through the gears, and I'm thinking, why couldn't we do that with probation kids and make that an alternative to traditional probation? And I was running right out here by this tunnel. I can still remember it, the tunnel that goes right under the road here. From the time I left Joel Low Park till the time I got to that tunnel, I had the whole thing worked out in my mind, how it worked. And it's exactly the way Run the Streets operates today. So here's what we do. We get kids, we do not screen them for being in Run the Streets. It doesn't matter what your offense is. There's no kid too bad to be in Run the Streets. As long as you're in the community, you're eligible to be in the program. We don't ask the judge for, can this kid get in? Can that kid get in? Judge gives us a green light on everyone. Okay? So the positive psychology, one of the pieces of the positive psychology part of this is all in how this is presented to the kids. Okay? If I told you you're going to be on probation, okay, and to get off probation, you have to meet with me 3 days a week. You have to, one of those days is at 7:30 on a Saturday morning. We're going to meet outside. Some of those days it may be 10 degrees, 15 degrees, it may be raining, it may be snowing, whatever. We're going to be out there for a couple hours. You can do that 3 days a week for 12 to 14 weeks. And in the interim, we're also going to do a bunch of exercise. And that's what you got to do to get off probation. Now, who would sign up for that? No one, right? So it's all on how it's presented. We knew that several things had to happen. We had to make it look more attractive than traditional probation, and we had to guarantee them that if they finished the program, they got off probation. No ifs, ands, buts, or buts about it, okay? You do it, you cross that finish line of the half marathon, you were off probation. And so, in order to make it more attractive to the kids, what I came up with was, I went to the judge and said, let's let them off probation. If they finish this program, they don't have to pay their court cost. They don't have to go to counseling. They don't have to come in my office for meetings, because I'm gonna meet with them out there 3 days a week. And you're gonna waive their court cost, and anything and everything gets waived except if they owe restitution. Like, if they wrecked a car and owe the victim, $2,000, they still have to pay the victim their money. But anything else, they don't go through the traditional probation whatsoever. They don't even have to follow the same rules that kids on probation follow. Kids on probation get 4 pages of rules of what they can't do. Kids on Run the Streets get just 7 rules. The other kids get like 18 rules of what they can and can't do, okay? So, we put all that together, get some funding, find a place to do it. Season 1, we get, I think, 18 delinquent kids sign up for the program. And we meet out here on the track at Bartlesville High School. It's August of 2009. And those kids have no idea what to expect. One of the kids shows up, smells of liquor. They're dressed in all kinds of funky clothes. They have no idea what a runner would wear. And we get our way through that first season. And that first season, the kids do a marathon relay. In other words, we run a full marathon, but it's split up between 5 people on a team. So some people run 7 miles, some run 3, some run 5. But we did that as a team. So anyway, this first season, we started with 18 probation kids, and 13 of them finished the program, which just blew us away that could happen. But the interesting thing about it is, and what those kids are so conditioned for and to, is all the way through the season, they're like, this is too good to be true, too good to be true. It can't be happening. They're giving us stuff, they're helping us, my probation officer's out there running this with me, we're doing the same thing. They're, having parties for us, they're buying pizza. Why would they do all this for us? And we get down to the finish line party, which is the party we have at the end of the season. We decide we give them hoodies with, like half, or now they say half marathon finisher, but back then they said marathon relay finisher. We give them probably $200 worth of stuff we give them. And we get down to the finish line party, and we're having hamburgers and hot dogs and cake and drinks and everything. And the kids at that party still do not believe they're getting on probation, because they're so conditioned to people putting them down, keeping them down, the negative. And, Judge Slapp hands out their things saying you're on probation, and they really could not believe that that's what happened. And so those kids, there's a handful of those kids that I still stay in touch with. I'm the godfather for one of their children. A kid who, this is how his case started out. He and his friend were drunk. They were walking through their neighborhood. The cops started following them for no other reason. There were a couple of kids out after dark and looked like they got to be up to no good. And so, if the cops are following you, what do? Even if you're not doing anything but being drunk, you run from them. So they run to a friend's house, go inside. The cop catches one of the kids. The other kid goes inside the house and hears his friend yelling because the cop has him, and comes out with a baseball bat and charges at the cop with the baseball bat. And the cop draws his gun and almost kills the kid. And so he goes to detention, gets into the Run the Streets, the very first Run the Streets program, and that's the kid who I'm the godfather for his child. He and his wife have been together all this time, one child. They both work. Neither one of them have ever been in any trouble again. And, we communicate all the time. I saw him at a weird story. I was in the bathroom at Quick Trip one day, and I'm getting ready to walk out, and he walks in, and he's like, there's the guy that changed my life. And you're like, okay, dude, we're in the bathroom at Quick Trip. So, let's not have this out.
Let me give you a hug. Yeah.
So, but again, that's kind of the premise of the program. And so, Bill could probably, it's been 30 years since I was in college, so Bill could talk about, when I was in college, I took like behavioral psychology, so there's like a positive consequence and a negative consequence, and a negative reward and a positive reward. Is that right?
Reinforcements.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hate it so bad. I don't remember it.
Yeah,
I just have to go to the book.
But basically what we try and do is make the entire experience for the kids a positive experience. And the program has grown and grown and grown over the years to the point where and even the first season we had a few kids from the community who were just doing the program because they were interested in what we were doing. And so, but the difference of the program now is that there's been a shift that we have so many kids in the program the delinquent kids are the minority of the program. They're like, I think we had 82 start out this season, and a dozen of them were delinquent kids. So we're still dealing with about the same number of kids, but they're just outweighed by the other kids in the program. One of the things we found early on was, and it's not so much true anymore, and it's kind of disturbing to us, but for the first 3+ years, the delinquent kids would not only finish the program and come back just to do it, not because they were getting on probation or anything, they would come back, they would bring their friends, and they would bring their siblings, or their friends' siblings, or whatever. And so about 3 years, 3.5 years into this program, at some points, we were at 60% of the kids in the program you could trace back to a delinquent kid. A kid who had originally been in trouble, gone through the court system, completed Run the Streets, and loved the program so much that they were referring their friends and their siblings. And now the things kind of shifted. We've had so many kids that are not involved in the system that they bring their friends, and it's just kind of a crowd out kind of thing. So we're working on trying to remedy that, because I can't speak for everyone on our board, but I'd much rather be dealing with kids who are at risk and doing preventive stuff than kids who are they're doing it because they're looking for, their parents are looking for a free athletic program for them, that kind of thing, or they're doing it because they don't have a cross country team in homeschooling kind of thing. So but anyway, the last thing I want to say about Run the Streets, and I'll show you guys a video, but is you would think that it's had an impact on those kids and they see it as positive and that kind of thing, but the big impact that it's had is on the mentors and the people in the system that deal with those kids, because I can tell you that I look at those kids in a completely different way than I ever did before Run the Streets. I am a pretty hard-nosed probation officer. I talk like a jerk to those kids, and I try and get under their skin, try and get them motivated to get off probation. And a lot of these kids, by the end of the season, I end up seeing them completely differently, and they end up seeing me completely differently. And the positive part of this program is that, if nothing else, when those kids are finished with Run the Streets, they look at the court system and the players in the court system not as adversaries, but as people who are there to support them. When I see those kids in the community, if I see a kid on regular probation in the community, like say I see him at Quick Trip, they don't know me from nothing. They don't make eye contact. They and their parents, take a hard left away from me. They avoid me. That's what happens. Regardless of, even if you think the case went well and they're all chummy inside your office, when they see you in the community, they don't want to have anything to do with you. When I see a Run the Streets kid, like I go to the high school to see someone else, say I'm waiting in the counselor's office, they will actually come in out of the hallway and detour whenever they see me to come see me, hug me, shake my hand, that kind of thing. And it's just such a mind shift from what happens in traditional probation. You're not their enemy, you're their advocate. And I had never expected that kind of thing to happen in the program. But let me show you a little video of it'll kind of give you an idea of what we do. Might have completely asleep though.
Oh, yeah, probably did.
About screen
Oh.
resolution.
Sorry. Windows 8. I had it open. Madison? Hell. Hey, desktop. Trying to get to his flash. Should have brought my other computer, but I don't know if I got a DVD or. Oh, that DVD. It's tired. If you go to the desktop, you can.
You know how to get to the desktop?
That's what you're for.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Is that it?
Yeah.
That's where we start out.
It went by.
Yeah.
Is this the video?
Yeah, that's it.
Here we go.
This was on blood. That guy with the pink beard.
So you can see what we're trying to do is make it a lot of fun and make it about everything but running. And it seems to work. The kids love the program. The Seven Mora, who Libby ran with that one season, she's still in the program, so just finished her third season. And she was at Disney World over spring break, and I follow her on Instagram. And while she's at Disney World, she posts some Run the Streets pictures and a collage and says how much she misses Run the Streets. And I'm like, you're at the happiest place on earth and you miss Run the Streets, you know. And Bill, you want to talk about anything that I've missed as far as how the program works? There's a lot of layers to the program, and it's just hard to kind of hit on every different way it works.
Well, I think that because I've worked with juvenile kids too, and I think when the first time I heard Bob speak, he got up and said, you know, I'm a juvenile officer, but really I'm kind of a social worker, and I about fell out of my chair because I'd never heard a juvenile officer would never say anything like that. And he had a heart for these kids and came up with an alternative. And when I've experienced it, it's like it is the best therapeutic environment I could even imagine. I can't, like he said, it touches the mentors more than the kids sometimes. And I told him, somebody asked me at the end of the race the other day, are you going to come back next season, Mr. D or Bill? And I said, you can't keep me from it. I'm hooked. You know, it's like, I told Becky, I said, I hope you don't fire me because that'll be really depressing because I look forward to it. Now, when I go out there, it's funny because, you know, when you go out for a run, we're all excited and ready to run. And Bob's a runner. I'm not a runner. I'm a jogger, maybe, a walker. And I'm real excited at the race and we're getting ready to run. And I get into the first mile and I'm going, what was I thinking? This hurts. Why? This isn't any fun. And after the first mile, I get conditioned to where I can do it. And then I ran 13 miles with a 13-year-old girl this season. And she did great. In fact, one of the 10-mile runs she pulled me through, I was feeling down about it. And she said, come on, you can make it to the next pole. You know, it's like, I'm going, yeah, I guess I can. You know, and she was really encouraging me.
And for the most part, these kids are not runners whatsoever.
No.
We at the finish line party, we added 3 kids to the 1,000-mile club, so they've done 1,000 miles in the program, and I think 9 kids to the 500-mile club. And if you passed any of those kids on the street except one of them, you would not think they were even runners or capable of running more than around the block. And some of those kids have logged 1,000 miles in the program. But you know, going back to the juvenile offenders, one of the things we do with these kids is we do an assessment right off the bat with them, work up a treatment plan. It's this artificial language that says stuff like, youth will identify and address triggers that contribute to substance abuse through weekly counseling at such and such agency as evidenced by monthly written report. And that's their treatment plan. That's what their treatment plan says. So you give that to a 15-year-old kid who's smoking weed and broke into his neighbor's garage. Does he think he needs counseling? No, he does not think he needs counseling. Would he go to counseling if it required him to show up at 5:30 in the morning on a Saturday morning? No, he would absolutely not do that. Would he run beside his probation officer for 10 miles and talk about everything that's going on in his life, you know, running side by side because you don't have anything else to talk about? Would he do that if he thought he was going to get off probation? Yeah. And, you know, Bill may disagree with this, but to me, what I've found is it doesn't matter what kind of credentials a counselor has, how good a counselor they are. If a kid doesn't connect with them, it's pointless. And so if you're sending someone to counseling who thinks they don't have a problem and they don't connect with the counselor, then you're wasting that kid's time and the counselor's time. And someone who, you know, we've got one of our 6 o'clock mentor of the hour is a guy that works in a machine shop, and the kids voted him mentor of the hour. That's who they connected with. And he, you know, and I think he received second most votes for mentor of the season. And so it doesn't have to be someone like me or Bill or someone with some kind of credentials or someone, you know, who's worked with kids. It could just be your average citizen who knows how to connect with kids and listen.
Yeah, it's the layers of it are really incredible because it's like we're both doing something that it's hard for me. It's hard for me as for the kids, except I've just got more years on them. You know, I know that I'm going to survive. I've been through some tough times, maybe, and a lot of those kids have probably been through some just maybe even tougher times than me. And you've got this challenge that you're both equal to. You know, it's not like I'm the expert and I know exactly how to run this program, because Bob runs a lot faster than me, but he's got kids that'll run his legs off. We had a kid that finished that marathon in under 7 minutes a mile. I couldn't believe it. I mean, we were my kid and me are a third way out. These kids are running back, and they're full bore running.
Yeah, two of our kids finished 4th and 5th in the half.
Yeah,
Overall.
overall.